Hello and welcome back to another episode of Only a Bag, the guide to Italian travel. This is part 2 of a two-parter.
And I'm Nathaniel Mellar.
Oh, sorry. Did I say my name yet?
No.
Okay. And I'm Darcy Melton.
Sorry, you're saying it's part 2.
I really skipped ahead there. Sorry, y'all. I was so excited that this is part 2 of our two-parter on having the perfect air travel trip. What's that called? Flight? That's what it is. Yeah. So if you haven't listened to part 1, go ahead and listen on now to part 1. We talked mostly about airports and things to do in the airport.
Airport security. We briefly touched on, because we didn't in the previous episodes, we briefly touched on travel credit card booking portals, booking platforms. In case you have a travel credit card or a credit card that the company has a travel portal, because it gives you a lot of benefits to book through there. I think that was most of it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's a couple segues in there that were really nice that
of course there were.
That Nathaniel sort of erringly tried missing a couple of times. And now we've ended up here.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about the actual flight part of your trip. And to start off, we're going to talk about booking your seat, right? And airplane configuration.
Yeah, and I think this is all about how to make you have the most comfortable flight possible. Mm-hmm. Just for, this isn't, in case, I realize, because I'm thinking, because our title, you have already seen our title, dear listener. We have not. But this is about having the most comfortable flight possible, not necessarily, this is not about, finding the perfect flight in a financial sense or anything like that. It's more about what to do when you're actually on the flight that you've already booked. But we will go a little bit into
I guess because we have a tip on booking
yeah.
things. But yeah, you're right. It is mostly about being the most comfortable.
And before we get started, just very briefly, if you would like to follow us and keep up to date, you can follow the podcast, subscribe to the podcast. You can also, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, anything like that, you can message us on Only a Bag Podcast on Instagram. You can also send us an email, onlyabagpodcast@gmail.com. And if you'd like to read some of this, if you're both an auditory and visual learner and you like reading, we have a website, onlyabag.com. It has some pretty fun articles that are much more short form than what you're currently experiencing.
And if you like our podcast, you can leave us a review.
Yes, we would love it if you left a review. And thank you to everyone who has left reviews. Very genuinely, amazingly helpful. It does actually our impressions. I don't know what that is, but no, impressions. It's how many people see us on Spotify homepage. Mm-hmm. It does go up. And I think every time we get a review or every time we get followers, I think it gets a little boost where it's just, I don't know. It's just really nice to be oh, wow. You leaving a review and you following us helps us get found by more people, and it's very nice and it's very helpful, so thank you. And last but not least, if you would like to support us in a financial sense, you can do so by also supporting yourself through our affiliate links in the description. These are just links that basically we make a small percentage of the company's profit, so that you don't get charged any extra. But if you want to book through Booking or Expedia, in this episode, I think we talk about, we use some Belkin products, which makes they make travel adapters and power banks and things like that. If you'd like to support us and you are going to buy something anyway, please feel free to use our links. It gives us a little money and it helps us afford slightly nicer things for the podcast.
Mm-hmm. Like some new booms.
And I think that's everything.
Yeah.
Boom, there it is. That was awful. And just a moment too late. So let us get started. Can't laugh at me too much.
Let me gather myself.
This is why we don't do video podcasts yet. Well, this and a lot of other reasons. I have what they call a radio face, or a face for the radio. What is it?
What? You have a beautiful face.
Thank you so much. I have a face for the podcast. So what are we talking about first? We're talking about, I guess, you mentioned earlier what to look out for, what kind of aircraft to look out for. And yes. I think this is something that was over the top 10 years ago. Honestly, 10 years ago, it was kind of you get what you get. Mm-hmm. There wasn't that much there was variation, but not a lot.
less than there is now in like the flight configuration, seat configurations.
Flight and seat configurations, but also I think it used to. I don't know. I get the impression like when I was flying in like 2013, which I'm realizing is not quite 10 years ago. It's 11 years ago. Okay, I forgot what year we were in. No, I felt like the seats were bigger and it was more standard. Like even, I think you and I have talked about this before, but like when we first started traveling, the entertainment in the seat back was a relatively new thing.
Right.
Not all flights had it. Not all flights have been retrofitted with that yet. So, and it was, I don't even know, like I'm even thinking like Google Flights, and we talked about ITA Flight Matrix, which I called MTA Flight Matrix, erroneously in the past episodes. Kayak, things like that. I don't think they even listed what kind of aircraft you would be on. And they might have, and I just missed it. But I don't think they were listing that. They were just saying you're going to be on an aircraft. So there wasn't really a way to like figure out ahead of time, am I going to be on an aircraft that's been renovated recently with the seatback entertainment? Is it a new aircraft?
It was a luck of the draw.
It was a kind of a luck of the draw. And now it seems like people are demanding, the travelers like yourselves, dear listeners, are demanding more information about their flights.
But also something that's changed is that there's far more like tiered seat.
Good point. Very good point. Yeah.
Pricing. Like we were talking off mic earlier about, and we'll tell you all now, like bulkhead, like used to be just or exit row. Yeah. You got it or you didn't.
Because that used to be like the tip. Like,
right.
Oh, if you actually give, if you can choose a seat and choose the exit row and you get a little bit more space. And that was like the hot insider tip. And then bulkhead was the same thing. Like, that's a great place for extra leg room. Now it's $150 extra for that seat.
And even the seats behind that row, because those rows legally, like they can't go back, the seat can't move. And now a lot of airlines charge for the row behind that seat because the person in front of you isn't going to put their seat back. So it's like there's fewer like flight hacks,
That's the thing. I think, well, it's partly I think there's fewer, but I think honestly, like I have that sort of tinfoil hat conspiracy that there's some intern at like Delta and American and Southwest or whatever it is that are scouring these hack, these flight hack boards to be like, oh, people are really trying to get these seats. Let's charge more for these seats.
You think that's an intern doing that? That person probably is paid highly.
Really? Oh, you think it's like the corporate, like the consultant? The outside consultant?
It's some skeevy, hair slicked back
outside person. Consultant?
Yeah.
Like a Manhattan like power bro.
He's probably one of those consultancy firms. Wow, we're really getting...
McKinley?
I'm getting... Yes! Getting into conspiracies now.
I mean, that's a very active company.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a conspiracy. All that being said, though, before we start getting blacklisted off of every website possible, no, it's that like even I think I mentioned to you when we flew back to Savannah for a very impromptu trip, and you flew Delta and I flew American, and one of the things I noticed on American's website is because Delta is, I mean, when you choose your seat, you choose your seat. It's just whichever choose. I mean, you can't do the exit row; you have to pay more for that, and then they have the Delta Economy Premium Plus comfort thing. But American, I noticed for like $170 you can choose the nice seats, more leg room, wider seats, goes back farther. For like $70 you can choose seats in a quote unquote good location. And that was like literally the seats behind exit row were a good location, the seats near the galley but not the bulkhead because the bulkhead cost $170. The seats, it was like some seats, it was like somehow like the ones not on the bathroom side were cheaper than the ones on the bathroom side. It was one of those things where it's like,
oh, I thought I'd seen in some of my looking around for for tickets, it's that it's cheaper near the bathrooms.
It is, but you can also book, like, I mean, if it's one of the ones like domestic, and then you can like choose, you can pay whatever is $15 to choose your seat. It's like, I think, it's like 15 on the bathroom side, 25 on the non-bathroom side. Yeah, it's one of those things that's like, because I guess fewer people want to sit there.
Yeah.
No, but that's, I think the thing is there seems like there's a lot of, you mentioned the tiered seating, and that does play a lot into it. Because I think it used to be like, it was economy, and if you paid more, you get a physically different seat. And now there's at least on most airlines 2 or 3 lower tiers that it's the same seat. The only thing you're getting is like checked bag or a refundable ticket or something like that. Is like kind of the only difference now. And I think it used to be like, you pay more money, you get a different seat. So that all being said, that sort of leads us into this. The first thing I think you can do is pay attention to what kind of airplane you're going to be on. And I did part of it too, this like with all the Boeing news.
Yeah.
I think even Kayak has like a little thing you can sort by what kind of airplane you want to be on. Boeing, Airbus, and then like, CRJ or something like that, which is a more regional domestic plane in America or Canada as well. And no, I mean, but that's like, they've even moved that up higher in there on the left, like sidebar, because people were like, I don't want to fly the 737 MAX. I don't want to fly the 737.
And aren't those flights cheaper now? Have we noticed the ones that use Boeing
That's
planes
the
are
thing,
cheaper?
though, and I'm curious if that's again my little tinfoil hat thing. But because you're going to go back to Savannah for an art fair. Darcy's a fantastic oil painter. Shameless self plug. Well, not self plug, but no. But when we were looking into that, even on the same airline, like in a very similar flight, it's like you get the Airbus A350, and it's slightly more expensive. Like, I mean, by like $80 than the Boeing. And I think it's just, I think basically a lot of planes, or not planes, a lot of carriers are having difficulty potentially filling those seats. So they're like, we have to do cheaper because it's better to fill the seats than have empty seats. And I think that's a big part of it too. Like, just safety rating. There are some safe planes out there, safer than others. And the biggest thing though is, like one piece of interesting information is that the Boeing Dreamliner, for example, the seats I think are only, I believe I have it 16.5 inches wide, but I think that's the 777 I think, or 787 and the 777, both of Boeing's like flagship planes, the Dreamliner and I guess they're just the regular 777, are both 16 and 16.5 inches wide. Okay. But on the Airbus A330, A330neo, and A350, they have a 17-inch wide seat. And it sounds like, honestly, we're splitting hairs here. But honestly, that one extra inch, like I'm 6'4", and I'm a broad hips. I think is sometimes like I sit in a seat, I'm like, oh, my bones are touching the edge of this seat. I am not getting out. But no, for me, it's really important, like I think, because a wider seat is not just for the hips, but also for my shoulders. And like on a 16-inch seat, my shoulders go over into the person next to me, which hopefully is just Darcy, but sometimes it's not just Darcy, so I have to kind of lean one way or the other. But on the Airbus, I don't. So that for us, I think, is one of the biggest things I look for is, and then, actually, the second thing is how much of the leg space in front. I think 31 inches on an international flight is typical. Sometimes certain seat configurations in certain planes give 32 inches, which is, again, being tall, that one extra inch is like the difference between my knees touching the back when the person's, I guess, leaning back and not. Because sometimes when people lean back, I have my knees are like there, so they just sort of slam the seat into my knees. And that one extra inch means they don't slam their seat into my knees. One of these days, I mean, I'll be flying like Comfort Plus, so this will not be an issue. I have set my sights very high. So that's the maybe two biggest things. And the third thing is seat configuration. And this might even be more important for families, or couple travelers, I think. But a lot of planes, I think the two most standard configurations are 333 and 242. So 3 seats, and 2, 4, and 2. And I think you and I, like, one of the reasons we like Airbus is because most, like Air France and Delta, and KLM, they take Airbus's recommendations of doing a 242 configuration rather than doing 333 because it's
333 is the most awkward.
It's the most awkward. It makes slightly more narrow walkways, I believe. But also, I think that part of the issue, that the reason that Boeing does 333, even 343 in some cases, is because they have those slightly narrower seats, and you can do that. And in Airbus, it just makes it really awkward. Like, again, they're not as wide a plane physically, so it makes really narrow walkways when you do, I think, 333 on an Airbus. Which is all to say is like you and I like the 242.
Right. So when we're flying together, we'll get obviously the two seats next to each other in on one side or the other. But then whenever I fly on my own, I like to get an aisle seat in the middle, like on the four seat group. I'll get an aisle because I'm socially awkward, and I would feel pressured to like chit chat with my partner if like my stranger partner, if I'm flying by myself and I'm just in like the 2-seat group.
Yeah.
I would definitely feel pressure to like talk to that person and make conversation, where in the group of four there's like a little more anonymity.
You're going to have somebody running interference for you on the other side of them.
Yeah, but always I choose the aisle if I'm by myself, because otherwise I'm going to have anxiety about having to ask the person next to me to go to the bathroom, you know?
Oh yeah, for sure. No, I'm always on aisle, but also because I like to stick one of my legs into the aisle, as long as there's no like galley service or something, just so I can actually extend my leg. But if you're a family sitting, and if you're a family of four, for instance, sitting in the middle of four makes sense. If you're a family of three, doing one of the 3-3-3s makes sense, so you can all sit together. So it kind of depends, I think, a lot on who you're traveling with, and then also too, I mean, if you're a family of four, but you're like, I do not want to be sitting next to my kids. I want them to sit by themselves. Then you can do
like teenage children.
Yeah, teenage kids. Yeah. I think then you could do two teenage children like in two of the seats, and then behind them like the parents. I mean, this kind of starts falling apart though, I think, like on a family of five, for instance, because then it's like there's no 3-3-3 or 2-4-2 seat configuration that makes it all five people can sit next to each other. But something you did just mention off mic when we paused briefly, but you guys didn't even know that we paused because the editing is so on point, is basically the fee for sitting together.
Yeah. So in the last couple of years, it seems like airlines have been intentionally splitting families up and couples to encourage them to pay more.
To choose a seat.
Yeah, exactly. To choose seats together. You can, upgrade or whatever. But I recently learned that there are at least 4 airlines in the U.S. Who have made an agreement with the Department of Transportation saying that they will allow parents and children under 13 to sit together. So that means that they will probably split you up. But then when you go talk to the desk whenever you check in, you can request to be sat next to each other. And if they say, if it's JetBlue is one of these airlines, if the JetBlue person says, okay, that'll be, $38 or whatever, you can say, no, your website says that I and my child under 13 can sit together for free. But as you said earlier off mic, there's legislation, right, that is going to be changing that, hopefully.
It's one of like the last, not to get too political, but it's supposed to be one of these last, the Biden presidency has this whole thing against junk fees, like hidden fees for buying cars, hidden fees for airlines, hidden fees for gyms, I think is actually part of it.
Really?
Like, because gyms are, and again, listeners, if you have ever bought a gym membership, you would probably know that to sign up is super, super easy. Like really easy, but to cancel your gym membership often requires like a 14-day waiting period, calling a certain number, waiting on hold for a few hours, going to this location, faxing something. It genuinely is like so difficult to cancel a gym membership. And a lot of gyms do this on purpose because they figured it's so difficult to cancel, no one will do it. And so America is trying to copy laws in other countries that I think the UK actually has a law. Basically you cannot have, the difficulty in which to cancel something has to be the same difficulty as which to sign up for something. So if it's a one-click sign up, it has to be a one-click cancellation.
That's awesome.
Which makes sense because a lot of companies want you to sign up with one click, but want you to cancel in 1,000. So yeah, it's part of this legislation is while targeting, I think, at gyms and car dealerships with all the fees the de-icing fee and the this and that and the blah 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 is on airlines who intentionally split up families and couples in order to get them to either upgrade, as you mentioned, or even just buy a seat selection to sit next to each other, which it was never, like literally never. I mean, I feel like one of those people who, are always talking back in the day, you could bring as many bags as you wanted on a plane. You could do this, you could do that. And I'm like, you
could smoke.
I know. And I feel like one of these people, I'm like, you could buy a ticket with somebody and actually sit next to that person because you bought it at the same time on the same card in the same transaction. And they just assumed you wanted to sit next to that person. So yeah, that's a good thing to mention. And then jumping straight into the next thing, segueing beautifully, is basically how to prepare for your flight, what to bring, how to make this comfortable. This is like the travel hacks, I think. It's like all of the travel hacks, quote unquote. I know you don't like that word hacks because you're always like, it's not a hack. It's not a hack.
Oh, I just don't click things that say hacks.
Oh, okay. Advice, tips,
there you go.
Tricks, tax. No, I don't like that. Nobody will click anything that says tax, even if it's spelled TACKS. So that being said, Darcy, would you like to bring us in on on some. You're giving me a look of like, Nathaniel, I cannot read that handwriting. I did all the talking because I did. I'm doing all this talking because I did the research. But typically, when Darcy does the research, she writes these really nice notes, and we can both read them and act like we both did the research. When I did the research, I write these notes that look like a doctor did the research, and Darcy cannot read them.
I also did research, but
Oh, you did?
I kept it in my head today a little bit.
Oh, fancy!
Yeah, I'm pretty smart.
You're just I like that.
Okay, so are you suggesting that I talk about like the list of things
Yeah,
to bring with you?
exactly.
Okay. So, I'm just gonna rattle through them, I guess.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Eye drops. Huge.
Super huge, super dry on flights. I think you and I always get eye strain just from like watching something.
Yeah.
Especially because even when you turn the brightness down on the screen, it's still super bright screen. Especially if you are coming to Europe, the flight attendants will often encourage, pretty much a knife point that everybody lower their what is it, the little window shade, so people can sleep on the plane. I got to be honest, I hate when the flight attendants don't do that because there's always like two people who fell asleep without lowering their shades, and even if it's nighttime travel, it should be nighttime travel. And if you fly really far north in the summer, especially, 2 a.m., it's light out and the plane is bright. So all that being said is the eye drops really help with eye strain, and it really helps with the fact it's just super dry air all the time on your eyes. It can kind of make them feel bloodshot and super strained and tired for when you actually land.
So going hand in hand with that is a refillable water bottle. I'm always thirsty on flights, and usually they'll have, extra water in the back or come around with bottles of water, which is awesome. But we try to bring a refillable water bottle to fill up in the airports.
Yeah, no, that one's, I think, super helpful too, because you're right, they do come on with water. I think Delta's shifted to a snack center, or I don't know what it's called.
I kind of love that.
Yeah.
They have the little cups of water and orange juice in the back throughout the flight, and like a little bin with snacks, and it's a nice excuse to get up and walk around and stretch.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, which cheese and cracker combination do I want as you're stretching? And you're like, ooh, you just take some time to.
Well, it makes sense, I think, too, because they probably, when they were going around, they probably found a lot of people are sleeping or don't want them. So they would just leave it in the galley. If you want them, you can get up and get them.
It's probably so much easier for them to not spend as much time wandering up and down the aisles and just, have a minute to do all the other things that they need to be doing. Yeah.
That's a good point. And then going hand in hand with that is actually a nasal spray, something we've been started doing super recently. But it's the same thing. It's just my nose gets super, super dry. Like I'm one of those people prone to nosebleeds when my nose is dry, just because I was not born for the cold Arctic winds of the airplane. And so no, my nasal passages dry out. But the nasal spray is super, super helpful. And I know some people too like them too because they're supposed to reduce your risk of getting a cold or something like that, because it's supposed to flush out and sanitize. I just like it because it makes my nose feel nice and happy when I'm on the plane. That for me is a big one.
Chapstick and face moisturizer are the next ones.
Or lip balm. If you have lip balm, it's probably better than chapstick, because sometimes chapstick dries out your lips in order for you to put more on.
What's the difference?
Well, I think chapstick often dries out your lips, so you have to put more on.
But chapstick is like the brand.
Yeah, that's the one you're not supposed to use.
But chapstick is not a lip balm?
I think it's technically a lip balm, but I think it's one of those ones that's become so ubiquitous as I guess when I think lip balm, I'm thinking those little those little circle containers, those little tiny little tin circle containers, and you take the lip.
Carmex.
Yeah, is that what that is?
Yeah, well, that's one of the brand names. I used to love the cherry
brand
Carmex.
names. I don't even know any brand names. That's crazy.
And then when we were in middle school, they came out with it looked more like a lip balm, but it looked like a medical lip balm because it was still the Carmex colors, but it was the little squeeze on your lips, and I thought it was
that's
so
right.
cute.
Yes, with the little red tip, and you squeeze it out as a little gel. Yeah, that was kind of cool. What happened to those? They still exist?
I think they probably still exist.
So those are helpful for the flight, because that's, I know it's silly, but not silly, but it seems like overkill. But it is, I think, the lip balm especially, it's it is just between the dry lips, the dry nose, and the dry eyes. It can really make the experience not painful, but just super uncomfortable for the entire time. And you mentioned lotion.
Yeah, and I mean, I think mostly face moisturizer, but also lotion for your body. I don't do that as much because I never feel like my hands are that clean, and I have very sensitive skin.
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
I also have oily skin, so I don't moisturize my face. But a huge tip is I use Bob face wipes essentially, and I don't know what specifically they're called, but like sensitive face wipes.
It's like facial cleansing wipes or whatever.
Yeah, is what I use, and I also get hecka sweaty, basically all the time, but especially on flights.
But on flights, because it's like that thing where you can't really move, and it's like your body's simultaneously hot and cold.
Yeah.
So you have that thing where you're shivering and sweating. It's like a weird thing. Yeah. But those wipes are super helpful.
So we bring two kinds of wipes, and when I say wipes, I feel like that has the like a notation of like flushable wipes, and that's not at all what I mean. I mean like a lovely like cucumber sensitive face wipe.
Almost I'd say almost like makeup remover, not quite, but like
Yeah,
probably not as harsh,
but not the makeup remover ones, because some of those I think have like alcohol in them.
Oh, okay. So not makeup remover at all.
But like usually they'll use the word sensitive, and that doesn't mean intimate, it just means sensitive.
We get ours in Italy, so we're fancy. Where I think that's just we get them from pharmacy, and on it it's like.
And I've seen them in like Walgreens and Target and places in the U.S. I just don't know what the word is for them. But so we bring those to wipe off sweatiness, wipe off face, all that. It's very refreshing and so much nicer than not. As well as hand sanitizing wipes, which sometimes when I'm feeling really crazy, I'll wipe off the screen. Like I'll clean my hands, then wipe off the screen and wipe off my little tray table.
That makes sense. Or the little nozzle for the air.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
These days I'm too short for those. If I get the aisle seat in
That's
the
a good point,
four,
yeah.
I can't reach that.
Because some of them you can't. I was on a plane recently, and you couldn't. Like I could barely touch, because it's one of the ones where the bins go up into the middle, and I'm like, oh, if you need to touch that air, you're out of luck. So that's a good point. Those are all kind of. These are all quite like not intimate products or whatever it is, but it's like they're body products, for lack of a better word. I think a lot of them, and it's just about kind of making yourself personally as comfortable as possible on the flight.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's still more.
Oh, there's still more like specific body ones. Okay.
Well, not for your body.
Oh.
But there's more flight.
Oh, there's
items.
tons more flight items. I was thinking like the only last body one I could think of was you mentioned on a flight recently somebody brought Claritin.
Yeah, that is for the flight and for just their trip. My little seat buddy person that I met mentioned needing to bring like 2 boxes of allergy meds, like generic Claritin or whatever it is, just because they were coming from, obviously one place to another, and they had so much more intense reactions to whatever was blooming at the time.
That's actually a good point, yeah.
But then also, like, just the recycled air in the airplane is blowing stuff around. So if you're sensitive to stuff like that, it's definitely smart to bring whatever your allergy medication is.
For sure. And I think even on that note, this is just more of a packing tip. You can absolutely get like painkillers in Italy, but they typically come in very small amounts. Like I think you can get 8 or 10 at a time for about €3 or €4. So if you're somebody for whoever, if you just need like ibuprofen or aspirin or something like that, and if you're like, oh, that's kind of like one of my daily carry things is just having it, whether it's for pain or for inflammation, I recommend bringing that with you.
Absolutely.
Rather than relying on it here.
And you don't need like a special note for those things.
Yeah.
We'll get in a second. I think we'll go into prescriptions. But for ibuprofen and aspirin, regular painkillers, definitely.
Melatonin, vitamins.
Melatonin. Yes, definitely bring those with you, and you don't need a special pass or anything.
No, not at all. So I think that's the last of the personal, like the things you could put on your body, like balms and things that make a nice trip. Tie hand in hand with that earlier mention, I think in the last episode, of a change of clothes. Super helpful, I think. Just
yeah.
It's, you talk about the wipes, and it's like you can kind of do a little shower, change your clothes, especially when you land, and you're not going directly to your hotel. Like you're landing and you're maybe getting on a train, or you're landing and you have to get another flight. In both cases for us, it's like, because we're about a 5-hour train ride from where we take the flight, from Rome. So it's kind of nice when we land to kind of refreshen ourselves and then get on a train. Because also you don't want to be, I don't know, again, we both get sweaty, I think, on flights, and you're like, you don't want that 18-hour, I've been on a flight all night sweat next to people who've just woken up and they're getting on the train, they're feeling good, and like, we're going on vacation, like, well, you people smell like death. So that is, I think, a big part. Last, I think not last, but actually similarly too is, again, these are things that people have been doing for years, but it's the toothbrush, toothpaste, mouthwash. I've never really did it because I was just kind of like always eating on a flight, and then like I wasn't really paying attention. But I think I started doing that the last 2 flights ago, and huge help.
You need bottled water for that, right?
I think so, because some of them are a little.
It's not potable water in the bathroom.
You're not supposed to drink that water, and it tastes a little weird too.
So you have...
For sure. Okay. Oh, for sure.
If water says non-potable, I am nervous about washing my hands with it. I mean, I obviously wash my hands, but I don't put it anywhere near my mouth.
If I say no, it's non-potable, I'm like, don't drink it, but you can do anything else you want with it.
It doesn't mean you can taste it.
As long as I don't ingest it, I think I'm fine. I'm clearly not, by the way. You should probably not do that. Do not take this as advice.
You should not do that.
But yes, toothbrush, toothpaste, mouthwash, all I think very helpful. Floss if you should be flossing. I don't want to tell you what to do with your teeth, but floss. No, I think it's all nice, especially because one of the things we kept noticing is like the last snack that Delta gives you.
Yeah, it makes your teeth fuzzy.
What makes your teeth fuzzy, but it was like 3 or 4 times in a row. It was a goat cheese something or another.
Or like
and
ricotta.
I'm like, yeah, and I'm like, my mouth smells like rotting cheese.
Nice smelly cheese.
After this, it was just, I know it's like, I apologize for people listening who are like, that's disgusting, I don't hear this, but I could not figure out, I'm like, we are just about to leave. Like, it is like, my body clock is on like 2 a.m. My mouth smells like goat cheese. It's like, I don't understand, like, this is not.
I don't know who I don't know what that's called, like the food designer.
Yeah.
Who decided that was what they were going to give out in the mornings.
Because it's lovely. It's just
lovely.
not like.
It's not good smelling.
Yeah, it's not like fruit and like something fresh. Like, I mean, give me a bagel, or I don't know, maybe we can't bring a bagel on the plane, but you know what I'm saying? Like something that's just very non-smelling food. So yeah, I wanted to throw that one in as the last one. But I guess on to the more physical things you can bring.
Yeah. Eye masks.
Eye masks, super helpful, honestly. But I mean, again, that's something I didn't believe in until I started bringing one. I'm like, oh, that's a game changer. That is blocking out.
Especially, like you said, for the flight over to Italy, because it's quite bright, and sometimes people don't put their over to Italy. That's when it's bright.
That's when. Well, it's over to Italy. It's supposed to be when it's dark. But if you're coming in the summer, and you're going kind of that far north, it'll be quite bright.
Thank you.
It's going back is daylight all day, but coming here is supposed to be nighttime the whole time, but it is not.
Yeah.
You're just staring into the sun, I think.
Okay. Earplugs.
Earplugs is huge, and I think it's something that people do undervalue. If that makes sense. I think it's just something that people are like, I don't really need earplugs, but both for sleeping, if you do sleep on a plane, and for me, I mean, I often use it, and you're going to talk about headphones next, but I often use earplugs and then my headphones on top, just to cut out a little bit more of the ambient noise, like the airplane noise, I don't know, what are those little jets, I guess. And sometimes too, if it is like, I've been very fortunate. I think I'm very rarely on a flight with somebody who's crying, like a child who's crying. No, I think and if it is, it's like, they're not right next to me. So I think the closest I've been is like 5 seats away. But the earplugs really it cuts it out a lot. Not like, we use loop earplugs. Is that right? Those are, I like them because they almost are like, they're very easy to insert, basically. They're almost like earplug, they're earbud type earplugs almost. Not like the squishy ones you said.
They're not like foam. And I feel like they're more, I don't know if they're more sanitary, but like, it's kind of gross, but the foamy ones, you can only, I think they're supposed to be one use.
They are,
but you can really only use them like maybe twice because they get kind of gunky. These, you can like wipe off, like take them apart and wipe them off.
They're multi-use, which I like, and they look cool. This is not like an ad for them, by the way. We just started using them because it's like a very loud country, Italy. So like for this fireworks and with just sometimes we go to like
concerts
and things, yeah, and they just be super super like deafening.
Yeah, they have the decibels turned up way too loud at these Italian concerts we go to.
Which brings us to noise canceling headphones. This is probably the most how do I put this? It's the biggest purchase on the list, if that makes sense. Like, it is something that is an investment.
Yes.
And if you're traveling a lot, it's an investment I do fully recommend. Because I think you and I never did noise canceling headphones. We just did regular over-the-ear passive noise canceling headphones. And then we got the active noise canceling headphones. And just very briefly, the way it works is really high quality noise canceling headphones can block out higher pitched noises, basically, like screaming or like, I don't know, metal on metal or something really kind of just high pitched. But almost all types of active noise canceling headphones can block out lower pitches, which is what airplane and train noise, if you need it for the train, but mostly airplane noise is. So like a $50 pair of noise canceling headphones will just, do wonders, but also because of just ear safety, just for what it's worth. Like a lot of times, if you're not paying attention, you plug in just like your little like Apple earbuds or something like that into the screen. You have to crank it all the way up to hear the movie, to hear whatever you're watching. And part of that issue is when you do that, something I was reading is basically just because it's like really loud and you have your earbuds in and it's you have to make them louder. It's not like that cancels each other out.
Right.
It's like you're just having
more noise on your ears.
Yeah.
It's doing more harm.
And for an entire 8 or 9 hour flight, you can absolutely do some ear damage. So the noise canceling headphones, I think, have been super. For us, we think we got $50 pair of noise canceling headphones each, and they've been super, super, super helpful.
Absolutely.
And then last but not least, last 2 or 3 things. First, like a sweater or basically just layer, I guess. We mentioned it is often really chilly on airplanes. You know this already. You don't need somebody telling you this, but for me, it's always a surprise. I never bring a sweater on an airplane because I'm just like, I'll use the little blanket, I think. But that is, that's something that could be very helpful. Neck pillow. I've never used neck pillow because I don't like the headrest comes up to my shoulders, not my head. So even when I lift up the headrest, thankfully they've actually changed some planes that you can lift up the headrest now. It still isn't enough space to put a neck pillow underneath it. So it makes my head push.
You also have a large neck, so neck
Super
pillows
weirdly.
fit you weird.
Yeah, and I can't, but it's like not so nice though that like, oh, I can just kind of tilt my head to the side and sleep on the neck pillow. It's just a bad. Yeah, I don't understand. But if you have a neck pillow that you like, I definitely would suggest bringing one. I would not suggest necessarily, like it seems like oxymoronic, but like I wouldn't necessarily buy a neck pillow for your flight to Italy, having not used it before. Like try it out before you use it on a big trip, which just means like, I know some people will just buy a pillow, try it out, return it if they don't like it, buy a new one, try it out, return it if they don't like it. Because unfortunately, there's not really like a store you can go to and try out neck pillows, which is weird because again, it's kind of like the thing you would need to go. That seems very
I feel
important.
Like you used to be able to do that at like Bed Bath and Beyond.
I know, right? That's the only place I was thinking.
Does that still exist anymore?
I think they went bankrupt.
Oh, yeah. That was a good store.
It was an interesting store. I liked it actually. I mean, it was a lot of fun. So that's one, and then last we mentioned this a couple of times is a power bank, and that's just essentially an external battery. In this note, very briefly, if you do have a roller bag that has the external battery, like it has a battery in it, like charge up your roller bag to use as a battery pack while you're traveling. You can't bring those on planes. You have to get the ones that the battery pack can come apart. If that makes sense, not come apart, but come out of. Like you can't check a battery pack on a plane. You can bring it with you as a carry-on, but you cannot check.
You can.
Yes,
okay.
But you cannot check a battery pack. And those are helpful. Most flights these days do have a place where you can charge a phone or even a computer, both USB and a physical actual plug. That's kind of really been helpful for us because ever since our phones are getting older and so therefore they die quicker. But again, kind of even in an airport, a power bank is super helpful because most of even the kind of cheapo ones will get you at least one extra battery charge, basically one extra 8-hour charge, but some of the nicer ones can give you like 2.5 to 3.5 extra charges. So if you're a family or if you're traveling as a couple like we are, one battery pack gets or one full charged power bank gets us at least two full charges on our phones, not each but together, and that's super helpful. Again,
It's huge. Yeah,
we've never been like battery conscious, battery shy, whatever that is, like battery anxious. There we go. Until now, where it just feels like the phones just are, because they're older, they just die so much sooner. So that's been super helpful. But besides that, I think that's everything, and it's a lot. I guess it sounds like a lot to bring. And we don't, I guess I should have clarified too, because a lot of things people are like, oh, like a passport folder or things like that. We don't really bring anything like that. No. Our documents, I put my documents in my pocket. We don't have passport folders or passport protectors. We don't bring a lot of things, I think, but I think we've just noticed every time we fly, we arrive super tired, super dried out. Our teeth are fuzzy. We smell bad. So it's kind of like we
arrive as a nightmare.
We arrive as a nightmare. So we've tried doing a lot of things to change that. And even though I can't like even sleep on a flight, like the eye mask, give me an eye mask and noise canceling headphones, and I'm just in this like meditative state of wonder. Where
I am not.
I know.
I have to watch movies the whole time.
And that's another thing. If you have an iPad, that's not a bad thing to bring, because a lot of people do load up an iPad with the TV show they want to watch, rather than having to watch whatever the seatback entertainment is. We don't have an iPad, so that's not an option. But if it is for you, that's also a great thing to bring, so you can kind of bigger screen, better detail, I guess, and then you don't have to worry about the person in front of you leaning back and taking your screen from you, because you have your own. So I think that's everything.
For the whole episode?
I think so.
Oh, I have 2 more things.
You have 2 more things?
Yes.
Lovely.
Okay. Prescriptions.
Yes, very important.
Yes. If you are someone who has prescriptions, you obviously need to bring those with you. And often the way it will work is a doctor will only, like, depending on the medication, they'll only prescribe you what you need for your trip, or, fulfill to the point that how do I say that? They'll fill your prescription to the point that whenever you come back from your trip, you might need to get more,
Like if you need Xanax for your trip for the flight, they'll only give you 2, one for there, one coming back. They're not going to give you 30.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was trying to say. And we're going to put in the description a link to, it's an Italian site, like government site, that has the form and information that your doctor will need to fill out. So if it's what is it called? A controlled substance?
Yeah.
If it's not ibuprofen, if it is like Xanax or prescription medication.
I think all prescription medication is a controlled substance, technically.
Yes.
At least for Italy concerns. So if it's like beta blockers or something, like, cholesterol medicine, stuff like that, you will need, you will need to fill out this form.
Yeah. It's basically a doctor's note with your information, their information, exactly what you're bringing with you, and exactly the amount that you're bringing with you. And I believe you have to get this filled out by your doctor within 30 days of your trip. So it can't just sit around for 6 months.
That makes sense, though.
So we'll put a link in there. My other important thing, and I'm not going to get too into it because I am not a lawyer and I don't want to tell you the wrong information. But something important to keep in mind is that if you are bumped from your flight, you do have rights. And we're going to put that link in the description as well. If flight attendants or the person at the gate check is asking for volunteers to, be bumped, to be taken off the flight, and they're offering you cash or, like a little reward.
Never cash, but you mean like...
Yeah, sorry.
I will give you $100 bill to step off this flight. It comes from the flight attendant's own pocket.
If they offer you, what is it, a voucher?
I think it's a voucher,
okay.
Yeah. I love you. They have a briefcase of cash. I'm just very excited by that idea.
Yeah, they just have extra money in their vaults where they'll give you money in case you need to get off the flight. But if they're asking for volunteers and they will give you a voucher, what I always find that risky, and I've never said yes, but I've also never been in the position where I don't need to get to where I'm going immediately. But if you don't need to get there immediately and you want to, maybe make a little extra money, cool. Yeah. When you volunteer, you can ask, before committing, you can say, I want to volunteer, but what are you offering? And you can advocate for yourself. You can not barter, but you can...
Oh, you can absolutely negotiate.
Negotiate, that's
yeah,
the
they're
word.
like, we'll give you $150 off your next flight. You're like, how about $175 off plus
about
first class?
$500 and a hotel room if I have to stay here overnight, and meal vouchers for if I have to stay here overnight. Be prepared for that eventuality if you want to volunteer and advocate for yourself.
Because also, once you accept an offer, you cannot get anything else. Even the government, basically in the eyes of the government, you've accepted the offer. So in that sense of if let's just say you've accepted a $150 voucher, but then you just find out that oh my God, there is no flight tonight. The only next flight is tomorrow. And you go back and say, oh, could you also put me up for the night? They're like, I'm sorry, our hands are tied. You've already accepted our offer.
And you can ask them before you accept when the next flight is that you're going to be on, and are you going to be not jump seat, what's the word, are you going to be on standby, or are they guaranteeing you a seat?
That's a good point too. Yeah.
And you had a good example earlier. So if I'm in line and I accept $150, I'm like, yeah, it sounds great, without asking any more questions. But the person behind me says, I want $500 and a hotel room and to be booked on this next flight, blah blah blah. You then cannot be like, oh dang, they got a really good deal, can you change my deal? You can't.
And I think, though, if on that sort of note, just as this, we've mentioned this in that sort of, I think it was When to Book Flights episode. So it'd be 3 episodes ago from now or 2 episodes ago from now, depending how we count. if you're flying to, if you like for the most possible coverage, or at least for European coverage, which is a little bit more strong than American coverage, just because it's a little bit more consumer protective in Europe, you do want to fly to Europe on a European airline. It doesn't matter how you fly out of Europe. But if something's late, even if it's weather related, they have to put you up. They have to get you on a next flight. They have to reimburse your food if you are flying a European airline. This does not mean you need like 2 different tickets. It just means like, let's just say you like United, you would fly Lufthansa to Italy or to Europe, and you'd fly United or whoever else you want back. Same thing with Delta. You would fly Air France or KLM to Europe, and you'd fly Delta back. So they all have code-share partners that one of them is usually European and one of them is American. But that way you are typically going to be as protected as possible from any sort of, lateness, delays, things like that. Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. I mean, as you mentioned, not mine. Mine's an amazing idea. But yeah, no, that's good to know in case something goes wrong in your trip, what you can ask for.
Yeah. And we'll put, like I said, we'll put links to the Department of Transportation information for the U.S. and flights coming out of the U.S. is, I guess, their jurisdiction. We'll put that link and the link for the Italian link for what you need to fill out for prescriptions. Those will be in the description. And
last but not least, and I'll do an article on this, I just want to say with the prescriptions, if you're going to be doing like a 3 or 4 month trip and you can only get a prescription in the States for like a 1 or 2 month supply, there are vehicles in order to get yourself a prescription in Europe. You can't use your doctor's prescription at all. It carries no weight whatsoever in Italy.
For getting a new
prescription. Yeah. But what you can do is there are services that will connect you with an Italian doctor, and your Italian doctor will communicate with your American doctor, figure out what you need, and get you something that's close to what you've been taking, because sometimes drugs that are legal in America are not legal here, or they're not approved here, or it could be the similar things but goes by a different name or comes in a different dosage. So that's something that just, again, if you're going on like a 3 or 4 month, vacation or stay, or you're a digital nomad and you require certain prescriptions, you can have your doctor talk to a Italian doctor and get them to the Italian doctor to then write your prescription.
That's huge, because I think that's something that is easy to not think about, especially if you're not someone who has prescription or medical needs. But your medical needs should not prohibit you from traveling.
Oh God, no, yeah.
So that's huge.
Yeah. So I think that's everything, correct?
I think that's it.
Thank you, everybody, so much for listening to an hour and a half of us talking back to back. Unless you've listened to this in not back to back, in which case, thank you for listening to this episode. We really appreciate it. We really do appreciate all the listens, all the feedback, the reviews, the ratings, the follows, the people who use the affiliate links. I mean, all of you are amazing. We genuinely appreciate it. It helps us a lot, basically. Like, I don't know another way to put it besides the fact that it's very helpful. And we genuinely deeply appreciate it. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And if you have any comments, concerns, if you want to send us a picture of your cat, because we love cats.
We do.
And dogs, lizards, any pets.
If you have a pigeon, you can send us a picture of your pigeon.
If you have a pigeon as a pet, please send us a photo.
Yeah.
You can do that by sending us an email at onlyabagpodcast@gmail.com. And you can find us on Instagram at onlyabagpodcast. And you can read Nathaniel's wonderful articles on onlyabag.com.
That sounds, that'd be awesome. And I think that's everything.
I think that's it for this, this episode.
Perfect. Thank you all so much for listening.
Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next Wednesday, probably.